Good afternoon. We've been asked by many of you to have a response to the events of the last day. And obviously this has been a very difficult time for America in general and the law enforcement profession in particular. We recognize as sworn officers of the law that fairly or unfairly, we are judged by every piece of officer conduct across the country. Ironically, despite the fact that there are 18,000 different police departments with different standards and different reporting mechanisms and different levels of training, we in Milwaukee find ourselves called upon to answer for the conduct of any officer anywhere in America. At the same time, we are also part of a profession that very specifically has its members place their lives at risk on behalf of other people. And if yesterday in Dallas proved anything, it proved that police officers were willing to die to defend the right of people to express a message that was negative about their own profession. The police officers of this country generally understand their obligations to the community and are the last ones in the world to see a dichotomy between the notion of Black Lives Mattering and support for law enforcement. Because without any hyperbole, police officers in America's city care more about black lives than any other institution. Because the police officers of America's cities are the only ones dying to protect black lives. And that's a part of the community conversation that gets lost. We recognize that African Americans are overrepresented among victims of violent encounters with the police compared to their census population in the country. But if you drill down into the statistics of any urban center in America, the greatest disparity in the criminal justice system is African American victims of violence, generally. Black lives matter all the time. They matter when they are murdered by gang members. They matter when they are murdered by robbers. They matter when they are murdered by carjackers. They matter when police officers lay their lives down in defense of them. And it's about time the general so-called conversation about police conduct and its relationships with disadvantaged communities takes into account the broader perspective of what takes place every day in this country in the urban centers of America. Now, policing as an institution doesn't pretend to be perfect, but every police department needs to be judged on its own merits. The police officers in Milwaukee should not be judged by what someone did in another jurisdiction. We stand ready to be judged by the standards of our own training, our own selection criteria, our own highly limited use of deadly force, among the lowest rates in the country, as well as the remarkable examples, time after time, when police officers in this city are justified in the use of deadly force, but do not use it. Now, I know conflict sells newspapers and conflict drives ratings, but we don't need to feed into the conflict narrative given the day-to-day reality of this city and any other city. Last year, 146 Milwaukeeans lost their lives to homicidal violence, and 80% of them were African American. Last year, African Americans were overrepresented in the aggravated assault statistics. Over the last several years, African Americans are 15 times more likely to be shot than anyone else in this city. And there's one institution willing to confront the gunfire, seize the weapons, make the arrests, and risk insult on their behalf. And that's the members of the Milwaukee Police Department, and the members of police departments in every other major city in America. So let us mourn. Let us mourn the victims of homicidal violence. Let us mourn the victims of inappropriate police shootings. Let us mourn the police victims of violence suffered in order to protect the lives of others. But let us recognize this is all part of one tapestry of a discussion, not a single discussion that singles out one group of people as the fall guys for all the evils of society. The last 48 hours have been a stark reminder of our profession's responsibility to do better, but also our profession's willingness to risk the lives of its members on behalf of others. Now, if you've got any questions that could be useful based on our local perspective, I'll be happy to answer them after the mayor makes a few remarks.